sitting here. Can I ask for those who are outside or just coming in to please take your seats? We're about to begin. Good afternoon, Excellencies, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor and pleasure to welcome all of you to this side event, Sailing the Past into the Future, Building a Regional Sustainable Sea Transportation Network. That's the focus of this side event this afternoon. My name is Kosi Latu, Director General of SPREP. And for those who don't know SPREP, it stands for the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program. I'm your moderator, MC, Chairman, take your pick. I would like to acknowledge all of the partners at this who have supported this side event. Without them, we wouldn't be here. And so I want to acknowledge the Office of the President of the Republic of Palau, the Republic of the Marshall Islands, the Government of the Federated States of Micronesia, Japan's Overseas Environmental Cooperation Center, the OECC, Okeanos, Global Island Partnership, and the Pacific Island Forum Secretariat. Pacific Islanders, descendants of the world's greatest ocean navigators. For thousands of years, Pacific culture has lived in the balance with nature. Today, the world looks to indigenous knowledge for place-based innovative solutions to meet the internationally agreed upon sustainable development goals. For nearly a decade, Okeanos Foundation for the Sea has been fueling the revival in Pacific voyaging and lived culture by designing building and supporting the operations of more than a dozen traditionally designed double-hulled open ocean sailing canoes that use native green energy sources, wind, solar, and coconut oil. Simultaneously, Okeanos has supported the training of hundreds of Pacific Islanders from more than 10 Pacific nations as sailors, captains, and boat operators. Okeanos Vacas are currently operating in these 10 Pacific Island nations in Fiji, in Samoa and the Cook Islands, in Tahiti, New Zealand, Vanuatu, RMI, CNMI, and soon Palau. The partners to this side event have agreed to collaborate on an important infrastructure proposal, which is intended to build on the traditional knowledge of Pacific Islands in building a regional sustainable sea transport network. And the focus of this sea transportation network is obviously in many ways, it is aimed to generate revenue for Pacific Island people through the creation of jobs, building boats, providing training certificates, and reducing government dependence on imported fossil fuel, while at the same time developing native biofuel industry. And so this afternoon, it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker. I'd like to inform our audience that two of our speakers are on their way, so they'll be joining us as we begin this afternoon's session. So it's my honor to introduce the first speaker for this afternoon, His Excellency Tommy E. Remengesau, President of the Republic of Palau. It's the first Palauan president to be elected 4 times, so he must be doing something good. He's well known as a strong advocate and champion for the Pacific on climate and oceans. He's been recognized globally for his leadership. And in 2015, he was the recipient of the inaugural Pacific Champion Award, an honor bestowed as part of the Pacific Islands Environmental Leaders Award. In 2014, His Excellency was awarded the United Nations Environment Programme's top accolade, the Champion of the Earth Award for his visionary leadership. Also in 2014, the environmental organization RARE presented President Remengesau with its first Inspiring Conservation Award for his work in preserving Palau's marine resources. He has many other awards, but I'm pretty sure you want to hear him speak. And so, without further ado, can I ask His Excellency, President Remengesau, to speak to us this afternoon? Thank you.
Thank you, my good friend Koshi. All that Koshi has stated really means that I am a fisherman who has taken time off from fishing to be in public office. But when I'm out of office, I'm going to go back to fishing full time. And friends, I think you've heard the description of tonight's event from Koshi. And I just want to say that we have a concept here that is truly innovative. A concept here that is a win, 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 win situation, no matter how you look at it. You know, we're here at COP23 trying to find innovative ways to address the impact of climate change on the livelihoods of people. Especially for Pacific Island nations, we realize that everything we do has to do with the water, whether it's our food security, whether it's our economic security, whether it's our cultural identity and livelihood, everything is surrounded by the water. After all, it's 1% land and 99% water. But so you can see the importance of water transportation for us. It's our highway in the ocean. It's our connection between the many islands. I come from an island nation of about 300 islands. There's only 6 or 7 islands that I can go by cars and bridges. The rest, you have to take a field trip. And so it's important. You go to the Federated States of Micronesia, you go to Samoa, you go to Kiribati, you go to Vanuatu. Everything has to do with water transportation. And so tonight, I say this idea is innovative because we are essentially talking about clean transportation in the water sector. Everybody talks about clean energy in power plants, in energy, but really nobody has given much attention to a very important part of clean energy through the water transportation. And so we have with us an idea. I said win, 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 win. And he said, how many times can you win? Well, we have a winning technology. And we have a winning application of this technology that will save millions and thousands of dollars for the governments who still have to buy fossil fuel to operate those field trips to other islands. But it's also a win situation because as a fisherman, as a proud navigator myself, we are reviving a tradition, a cultural trait that is actually dying out. And for those of you who may be tracking down the Polynesian Voyage Society and our good friend Nainoa Thompson in Hawaii and their voyage recently done around the world, you will see that the art of navigating by the stars is actually a dying knowledge. It's a dying technology. And only through a navigator, master navigator named Mau Piao Luke, who happened to be from the islands of Yap, the Polynesians, the Hawaiians, they took him to Hawaii. And from there, he shared the secret of navigating by the stars, the traditional way of ocean voyaging. But we now have the vacas over there that have been improved so that you don't just use the sail and sail it by use the stars. It can run by coconut oil of all things. That's plentiful in our islands. It can run by solar energy. And because of the design of the boat, it can go very close to shore. You only need 4 people to man that boat. You can take up to 3 tons of cargo. You can take up to 20 people. And you can do a lot more frequent field trips to the many islands to deliver goods and services, even through natural storms. So it's a very, very practical way, and I'm just surprised sometimes that when we talk about renewable energy, nobody really talks about it in the sense of ocean transportation. But folks, we have a very good opportunity to work and partner with people. The Green Climate Fund is all about funding innovations. And it's not just funding innovations, but funding innovations that the private sector, in this case the partner through the Okeanos, have designed and made these things even more efficient, even more seaworthy, even more practical for the kind of use that we anticipate. In essence, I like to applaud the wisdom, the vision of the Marshall Islands, the vision of Nauru, the vision of the FSM, and those really in Fiji and the South Pacific, New Zealand, of course, they've been able to utilize this same design and have proved to be very helpful, have proved to be very practical to their people. And I think the idea here is that as we address sustainable development, that this can also have a very big impact on the way our resources are authorized and appropriated or saved for bigger things. Will eliminate certainly fossil fuel, and fossil fuel, by the way, the boats and engines that use fossil fuel can also have a detrimental effect on the quality of the water and the reproduction system. We know that. So anytime you use clean energy on the water, it's more of a sustainable way to to do a major transportation purpose underwater. So tonight, I'm very happy to announce on behalf of the Pacific Islands that have come together, find a partner, and said this is something worthwhile, presenting it to the Green Climate Fund people, and hopefully we can work together to make sure that this is implemented to all the islands nations, that make it a mission for them to apply clean energy in their transportation. And with the blessings of all of you here and the understanding, I think we can make this happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much again, President Remengesau, for your perspective. I'd like to acknowledge our panelists now joining us. Vice President Yoshioka George of the Federated States of Micronesia, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Vice President, welcome to our panel, and you're just in time for your remarks. So your timing is impeccable, and so thank you very much for joining us. The Vice President is the former governor of Kosrae in the Federated States of Micronesia. He was also a former ambassador of the Federated States of Micronesia to the US, and prior to that he was also ambassador of FSM to the UN. So he comes to us with a pretty solid background. So Honorable Excellency Vice President, can I ask that you give your remarks? Thank you.
Let me, first of all, apologize for coming in late. We got caught up in the traffic. Anyway, I'm very pleased to join the President of the Republic of Palau, His Excellency Tommy Remengesau Jr., and I'm not sure if the President of the Marshall Islands is also here. His Excellency Hilda Heine, and representative from Japan Overseas Environment Cooperation Center to co-host this site on a topic that is very dear to my country and the wider Pacific region. I join them in welcoming all our partners and friends who are here this evening. I first learned about the FACA modus at the side event hosted by President Remengesau Jr. and the Okeanos Foundation at the margin of 72nd United Nations General Assembly in September. I was impressed by the vision and mission of the Okeanos Foundation of the sea and the use of FACA modus to help Pacific countries with their social and economic development aspirations. It made economic and practical sense to me for the Federated States of Micronesia to join the regional project proposed by Palau, and I am again confirm our interest as some of you may know, the Federated States of Micronesia, comprising 702 square kilometers and 7,164 square kilometers of lagoons. We have an EEZ of 2.49 million square kilometers, with 607 islands and over 80 inhabited ones. government service delivery to the people, patrol of our EEZ to safeguard our fisheries resources poses a big challenge in terms of the area we cover and the fund we consume to undertake the critical service for our people. The cost of fuel takes up percentage of our national budget. Funding that kind of clearly be used for other purposes. The Pacific countries' greenhouse gas emission is very minuscule, but we continue to find innovative ways to do our part to cut our own emission. The people of FSM especially, the people from the state of Chuuk and Yap, continue to travel between islands the same way our ancestors did, in a sustainable way. But with the adverse impact of climate change, many of the materials used to build our traditional canoe are becoming scarce. This project provides the opportunity for us to take the best of the past with the technology of today to build Faga models that can help or can adapt to our needs. We are encouraged to see the same principle coming back to the Pacific to help improve the livelihood of the Pacific people. If Faga models meet many expectations, whether you are talking about the universal SDGs or delivery of government service to our outer island, reviving the coconut industry, creating jobs for the youth, sharing traditional navigational skills. The discussion here at the COP23 has been about our way of life, changing it, adapting it. But at the end of the day, it has to be about improving the quality of life for our people. And each of us accountable to the other to ensure that each of us do our part. And in small step to leaps to ensure that this planet is livable when we leave it for the next generations. I thank you very much.
Okay, I see that President Heine has just arrived. Impeccable timing, Your Excellency. Can I invite you to join the other panelists? For those who are not from the Pacific, we have this intuition of being on time when it matters. And so, Your Excellency, welcome to our side event. Before I ask Your Excellency to speak, I just wanted to note that His Excellency President Remengesau may have to leave to attend to other side events and other commitments, so he may leave us soon. But can I now ask Your Excellency if you're ready can I give you a few seconds? Do you need a few seconds to get your notes ready? If you're ready, Your Excellency, I would like to kindly ask you to come to the podium and speak to us, please. And can I say thank you very much, President Remengesau. We appreciate your presence. Yeah, please.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, fellow panelists and friends, leaders from the Pacific. Sorry, I'm a little bit late running from one event to this one, so I apologize for running a little bit late. But I'd like to convey warm greetings of Yakwe from the people of the Republic of the Marshall Islands. My thanks to Okeanos and Palau for organizing this event. At this critically important subject is of immense interest to the Marshall Islands. The discussion here at COP23 and how we approach this challenge, and in particular the role that climate financing will play is a timely one. It is obvious that transitioning to low carbon shipping for a country such as the Marshall Islands is both a high priority and a large challenge. We have prepared a strategy and program for tackling this challenge. It is ambitious, and we have identified at an early stage that strong partnerships and relationships between multiple actors is the only option for success. We need to base our transition on the best available science and develop and retain in-country capacity to implement and manage such transition. It is also obvious that no one country alone can expect to achieve much in isolation. And so we have designed our program so as one can be a catalyst to achieve a maximum benefit on the regional stage. I note the large number of events at this COP in marked contrast to previous years dedicated to transport in general and low carbon transition in particular. This is especially heartening for the RMI, given that it is an issue we have been attempting to gain traction in both UNFCCC and in the IMO now for several years. All sectors must take responsibility for their fair share. While our country is small in size, we host the second largest independent shipping registry in the world. This gives RMI a unique position within the growing debate over the role of international shipping in addressing climate change. The RMI has been leading a small contingent of like-minded Pacific states, now working closely with a growing international coalition of states and industry, calling for the highest ambition by the IMO as it seeks to negotiate an emissions reduction roadmap. For shipping, a 1.5-degree track means full decarbonization by 2050. Today, we are focused on the parallel domestic necessary to deliver low-carbon sea transport solutions at home. As within the international sphere, this is an issue that has lagged behind other energy sectors. For example, between 2012 and 2017, the international donor communities have pledged more than $2 billion worth of projects across the Pacific for reducing our dependency on diesel imports. To date, they have almost exclusively targeted the electricity sector, which uses around 20% of our imported fuels. Transport, which uses more than 70% of imports, has been ignored. There is a vacuum in policy, in financing, and in integrated plan strategies to provide real pathways to low-carbon transition for our unique island shipping scenarios. Therefore, the RMI has developed and offered one potential solution, both for RMI and the region, through the Micronesian Center for Sustainable Transport, a unique experiment to see if we can transition one whole country and then cascade the lessons learned to our Pacific neighbors. I would like to use this opportunity today to set out the vision and to invite my colleagues here and any others to join us. It is also, RMI is an all-willing partners welcome. We're using an all-willing partners welcome approach. It is also an approach that is country and bottom-up driven, an approach we have spent considerable time and energy ensuring we have the full mandate of our neighbors and many friends in the region to pursue. In 2013, Pacific leaders released the Majuro Declaration on Climate Leadership. The RMI was the signatory to include was the only signatory to include a transport reduction target. We continued this trend in our NDC. Again, the only Pacific country so far to set a clear committed target to reduce our transport emissions. In 2014, we turned our attention on how this target might be delivered. We invited our University of the South Pacific, along with its extensive network across the International Academy, to assist. The result is a framework to establish a Center of Excellence, the MCST, to coordinate and monitor a whole of country program. Progress has been slow, reflecting the limited resources available for this initiative thus far. Nevertheless, it is progress and forward movement. Our first step was to ensure this initiative had the full support of our neighbors, and our first port of call was the 15th Micronesian President Summit in Palau. Since then, we have taken this concept to the CANCC, the smaller island state leaders, and finally this year to the Regional Transport Ministers Forum in Tonga. Both the RMI and USP have been reaching out to our development partners and other interested parties. The response has been impressive. Today's event, the high profile of shipping at this COP, and the growing alliance of responsible parties at IMO are evidence of our work to date. At the national level, Germany has committed to an initial 5-year project to implement key aspects of the MCST framework. The Okeanos Foundation has sent one of their vessels for trials. Next month, the Korean government and the World Food Program will sit in Majuro to consider the viability of a new Korean technology options. Moreover, the Asian Development Bank has promised to assist with data collection work, and at least one major private sector shipping group is offering research and a proof of concept vessel. However, I do not want to shy away from the potential challenges our approach raises. A large program of work with multiple partners, each with their own ideas and priorities for how to proceed, each with their own decision-making and reporting structure, is a large logistical challenge if we are not able to coordinate and manage it at the country level. For a real transition to occur at the scale and speed needed to make a difference, a significant investment is required. Such an investment is well beyond the resources of my government or any on the region. We identified early that the most efficient way to progress was via climate financing. The connections are obvious. In early 2016, we began discussion with the GCF Council and Secretariat and lodged an initial concept note to progress a major regional obligation of at least 250 million. To date, only 10 million or 10 billion has been pledged. There is widespread criticism of the funds, that the funds are too nominal, or I guess I'm talking about the GCF fund. The process too onerous and the reliance on external consultants and agencies too high. It is apparent that only one major bid in this field is likely to be selected. It is for this reason that we have to be very strategic about our approach to holistically deliver on proposals that will consider the efforts tasked to RMI and USP by our MPS and SIS leaders. We welcome others who wish to join the work with us on a comprehensive and broader application. As a previous Minister of Education, I'm a firm believer in ensuring that all programs have a strong base in education and research. We are fortunate indeed in the quality of research partners that have already committed so much to the establishment of the Micronesian Center for Shipping Transport. Having access to world-leading experts at University College London, Manchester, Tyndall, and other partners here in Germany, leading Korean researchers and others around the world, we are in a position to apply a scientific appraisal and monitoring to the work ahead. All of our projects are subject to due diligence, and we wish to make all such reporting open to ensure maximum benefit and knowledge transfer to other SIDS. I would be remiss if I did not convey appreciation to Okeanos and its proposal to provide training and opportunity for building more vagas to the RMI, engaging youth in maintaining and building additional canoes. We look forward to supporting this endeavor and look forward to achievement in real time. Again, I welcome our friends and neighbors and all willing partners to join us under the Micronesian Center and form a true Pacific collective on the critically important issue of transport. Komoltada. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Heine, for your comments. And since today is Gender Day, I think it's proper for me to remind us that President Heine is the first lady or woman president for RMI. And I think that's something that we need to acknowledge and to remember. So thank you once again, President Heine, for your comments. We're going to change tack now. Before we continue with our other three speakers, we're going to show a very short video, 3-minute video, and images and pictures tell a much better story in many, many ways. And so you're going to probably understand what we are trying to tell you today by listening and watching this 3-minute video. So fasten your seatbelts and enjoy the video.
The Wakamotu is an ingenious, brilliant plan to help small islands out there in the Pacific survive the 21st century.
This canoe is completely driven by the wind, completely driven by the sun, and it's going to be using in a sustainable way coconut oil for transportation for the countries that have the least, that need it the most. The poor of the Pacific countries that are going to be able to target very specific things. Let's have something for transport of food and goods and passengers. Let's have something for disaster relief.
The Wakamotu becomes the self-sufficient tool that these people need, that comes from their traditions and allows them the freedom to design their own future, given to them by their ancestors.
The Okeanos project that for instance, that we're working with can really help address the cost of transportation, the cost of efficiency, is really reinforcing a traditional knowledge that has been responsible to why we as islanders have survived over the years, because of conservation.
The Wakamotu is our traditionally designed, modernized sailboat, fully optimized and certified for commercial open ocean operation. She uses 100% renewable energy, including cutting-edge solar technology. And coconut oil engines.
Beautiful. Clean energy. No more fossil fuel.
A traditional shuttle craft and robust construction navigates almost any waters and can dock directly on the beach. We have equipped her with state-of-the-art navigation and communication system, and she exceeds all international safety regulations. Beautifully designed, she can comfortably house and transport 12 passengers. but she is tough and made for work. Her rig can convert easily into a swinging derrick, and she can transfer 3 tons of cargo, including disaster relief supplies.
Been here a month now, helping out with cyclone relief and catering of food, mainly root crops from the unaffected islands to the affected islands.
It's 4 blow, 4 or 5. I am one of the first pioneer to start the whale watching. I want to training the youth and use the baka for taking out people to learn about the whales.
Our Okeanos Wakamotu is ocean tested, proven and reliable. She is a product of Pacific innovation and culture, and she is a model for sustainable development.
Marshall Islands is very lucky. This boat, what it means to us will be to revive our traditional knowledge on navigation and sailing.
It can just go during disaster relief response or mitigation or research. There's so many possibilities.
My dream is to have these workers pop up every island in the Pacific. This, as you can see, we can operate these workers with 4 people on, and it's so easy. It's safe, and we sail all over the Pacific on these vessels.
Having the Pacific people and our ancestral knowledge be a part of the solution so that we're not spectators anymore. We're active and we're responsible and we're obligated, and that's revolution.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. We'll continue with our panelists, and next on the list is a colleague of mine. She is the Secretary General of the Pacific Island Forum Secretariat, Dame Meg Taylor. She's also the Pacific Ocean Commissioner, and we're honored to have her here with us this afternoon to speak to us and give us a few comments on our topic this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Your Excellency President Heine, Vice President George, ladies and gentlemen, I'm in awe of all this because I think I'd be pretty terrified to be out in the open ocean on one of these vakas. I'm the Oceans Commissioner, but I'm certainly not a great sailor. But I just wanted to take us back to some of the roots of all this. In early 1990s, I had the great privilege of meeting the great master sailor of the Pacific, Mau Pialung, from the Federated States of Micronesia. I was serving as ambassador to the United States in Washington, and he was returning back for good, going home. And I was asked to come and meet him at the Smithsonian. And I was in awe of him, and I never forgot this man and his journey, but I never thought in my life that I would have the privilege to be able to go to the Federated States of Micronesia, and I hope one day I'll be able to go to his island. But what this does now is that it takes us back. It's the renewal of ancient craft for a modern age. But what it does for our young people, and it does for me, is that it really emphasizes our identity. Who are we as Pacific peoples? And particularly for those of you who come from small island states. And recapturing the great skills of navigation, the identity of the Pacific people that is now that has been captured by our writers like Apeli Haufa, about those of us who come from these sea of islands on an ocean continent. And just recently, in September, when the Pacific leaders have come forth with this narrative of we, of the blue Pacific. It's our time now, and all this comes together. I want to congratulate Dita and the Okeanos Foundation for just the tremendous foresight of looking at building a modern craft on the heritage of what the Pacific Islanders always had. I know that there is our member states of the Pacific Forum and of small island states that are putting together submissions for the Green Climate Fund. And the Office of the Oceans Commissioner is very supportive of this, if this is the wish of what our countries want. And today you've heard some of the most important issues that have been raised of why this is important. And here we are at a climate conference, and it's about the issues of low carbon, renewable energy, clean transport, but appropriate transport. It doesn't mean that there is other models that some of the countries may want to use as well, but this is what is needed for the inter-island transport that many of the countries want. So putting together this submission is really important. It's also very important because of the financial model or the philosophy that the Okeanos Foundation has come up with in terms of making sure that there is training. There is also the ability for young people to be able to learn to maintain these vessels, and also to be able to build these vessels in countries where we have the craftsmanship of canoe building and boat building. This is really important, and the Green Climate Fund is very interested in this. I've always been fascinated when I've seen this film, particularly about how it was used during post-cyclone, and when Vanuatu was able to draw on the use of the waka to be able to immediately transport cargo into the outer islands when they needed this kind of assistance. Following up on what, to speak about this, particularly after our leaders have already spoken to you and articulated very clearly the need for this, I think all I can say is that the Oceans Commissioner believes that if this very much is the desire of our member states, then we stand right behind them to make sure that this happens, to put a very good case to those who can fund this, to make this happen, but to make sure that there is a really good skills base left in our region so that it's not just considered a novelty. This is really part of what building skills that will be renewable within our own communities, but also so that make sure that it serves a very functional purpose that is important to our countries. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Meg Taylor, for those very useful and insightful comments. As Ocean Commissioner, I would ask you to consider joining me on experiencing the wakamotos on a trip. Perhaps maybe instead of taking the plane, you and I should go on one of these wakamotos so that we can fully experience this. But thank you very much for that. Can I now move on to the next panelist? I'd like to introduce Dr. Emiko Matsuda, who is here to represent Japan's Overseas Environmental Cooperation Center. She'll be here to discuss the initiative supporting renewable energy infrastructure in the Pacific Islands, and she will be sharing some of their experiences in terms of the successful projects that they've been working on. So, Dr. Emiko Matsuda, thank you. Can we have Dr. Matsuda's presentation? PowerPoint? Yeah.
Okay, I thought I have a presentation here, but that's okay. I can explain what the Japanese efforts for the developing countries. And first of all, I'm really I express my sincere appreciation that the Okeanos provide this opportunity to have a chance to inform the Japanese the efforts. And then also, I'm really honored to be here to present my presentation, my speech, having in this high-level event. So our organization has been working closely with the Japanese government and then implementing the joint crediting mechanisms, which is the bilateral efforts between the Japan and the developing countries. And then the aim of the JCM joint crediting mechanism is that to facilitate to deploy the low carbon technologies, such as including the system, services, maintenance, and infrastructures, in order to achieve the target of the countries, especially in the developing countries. And so I'm trying to remember what that slide describes in there. Yeah. So we have been working for several years under the JCM, and then we have the partner countries, which counts for the 17 countries, including the 2 countries from the Pacific Islands, such as Marshall Island and Palau. And then I would like to introduce one of the projects, a couple of the projects which has been working on the Palau. And one of the Japanese enterprise leading to the project, installing the panel, solar panel into the commercial institute. And then that counts. And also, our JCM has been working for the sitting on the panel on the couple of the schools. And then we believe that we already know that the Palau has been described that they are trying to introduce replace the energy up to 45% with the renewable energy. And then we believe that the JCM project will contribute to that effort. And then also, I would like to mention that this JCM project will somehow link to the Sustainable Development Goals, having the several goals that are really relevant for that project. And then, so also, I didn't have any presentation here, but you have some brochure in your hands, such a beautiful the brochure that could describe a lot of the information on the JCM. And then our government, Japanese government, is really happy to work with the state of the islands to achieve the target for future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Matsuda. I think you did well in the absence of your PowerPoint slides. Thank you once again for those comments. You've heard our leaders speak on this very important topic. You've heard the Ocean Commissioner. You've heard one of our partners. And we're now going to ask someone who actually navigates these wakamotos to tell us a little bit about her experience. And so I'd like to call upon Eva Nancy Vunikura, who is a Fijian voyager and Okeanos skipper. She has logged more than 50,000 nautical miles on Okeanos traditional sailing canoes, more than any woman in the Pacific. And Eva I should say Captain Eva is currently the watch captain for the Okeanos Marshall Islands. That's what we do in the Pacific. We share our resources. And given that today is Gender Day, how appropriate it is for Captain Eva Nancy Vunikura to come and speak to us. Thank you.
Bulavinaka. My name is Eva Nancy Vunikura, and I am a proud daughter of Ngau, a group of islands in eastern Fiji. It is with great honor to be here today. When I was asked to speak at this event, I was very nervous, scared. I was not at all sure about what I was going to say and whether I had the right to stand here and talk about sustainable sea transportation and my experience on sailing the world on a traditional waka. I quote, "Just imagine you are on the waka and telling story to the people," end quote. So I'll pretend I'm on a waka and the ocean is around us. I have sailed the vast ocean on a traditional waka, one of the few in the world that can make this claim, and I know what I'm talking about because I am living it. I started sailing with Utunialo back in Fiji, 2011. The voyage took us all the way to America, just using the elements around us, the sun, the wind. The Temano Temwana voyage took 7 traditional sailing canoes, or waka, as we call them in the Pacific, to the Americas, where we sailed under the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. All 7 waka of the Pacific sailing our national flags proudly under the bridge after completing thousands of nautical miles was one of the proudest moments of my life. The journey was an eye-opener for me. We defied all odds when we sailed halfway around the world on a traditional waka, navigating by the stars and rebirthing our lost traditional art of ocean navigation. We proved that sustainable sea transportation via waka works. My standing here, alive and smiling at you, I'm nervous, but is a testimony that is safe, versatile, cost-effective, and the answer to decreasing the use of fossil fuel on our ocean. Many things happened on that journey. We saved the turtle that was eating a plastic. From what? From people polluting the ocean. We sailed along whales that blessed our journey. We crossed the equator twice and slept under the stars every night. I am currently a crew of Okeanos Marshall Islands. That's why I'm wearing this on my head. This is how the Marshall Islands look, but I've got the Fijian dress on. We sail out of Majuro, merging Polynesian, Melanesian, and Micronesian traditional knowledge. Every island I go to in the Marshall Islands, I see sailing canoes, and it is clear that canoes are still a vital aspect of their livelihood. Before this, I sailed with Okeanos Vanuatu out of Port Vila, where we help the government ship important food, water, and medicine to the people of the outer islands of their country that was devastated by Cyclone Pam and ripped through their island nation, destroying everything in its path. The Okeanos Foundation, which I am proud to represent, is made up of brave women and men with our founder, Paulmann, who are dedicating their lives to work and teaching people of the Pacific and the world how to sail on a traditional waka as methods of sustainable sea transportation. This knowledge only needs to be unlocked as it has laid dormant for too long. It brings me such joy when we sail our waka to their shores and teach them how to sail on it and talk to the youth about their ancestors navigating our oceans. To see the wonder and hope in their eyes is worth every nautical mile I have sailed. This is what I do for a living. I belong to a proud family of traditional voyagers from the Pacific, and I'm standing here on behalf of the voyagers from around the Pacific. We advocate cleaner oceans, cleaner air, no plastics, less pollution, and less use of fossil fuels on our ocean. I hope that one day this knowledge of traditional sailing that I and other traditional sailors will have shared across every island of the Pacific. I hope that our future generation will learn an appreciation of this sailing, this waka, that they will learn that their ancestors were fearless seafarers and navigated large ocean to settle in our islands. I have seen the sights that we are killing our moana and our Mother Earth, and before it's too late, I beg that we make a change at this conference, that we as Pacific people will walk away with our heads held high, that we came to make a change. Nakapakaliw.
Vinakavakalevu Okeanos skipper Eva Nancy Vunikura. If she can do it, I'm challenging the ladies out there. They're looking for an occupation. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that perspective. I was going to say challenge the men, but you know, we have. I believe we have 3 out of the 7 Okeanos boats. We have 3 female skippers. So you know, we need to make up the gender balance a bit. So, and the challenge is out there for the men as well. Okay. So you've heard from the leaders. You've heard from our Ocean Commissioner. You've heard from our Okeanos skipper. And there's always someone who tries to bring everything together, the nuts and bolts of something, and that person is none other than Dieter Paulmann. He's the one that is, I would like to say, behind the scenes, but actually perhaps not so much behind the scenes sometimes. But you know, he's the founder of and CEO of Okeanos Foundation for the Sea, and Dieter began building traditional Pacific sailing canoes way back in 2009, starting with the fleet of 7 waka moana that sailed the historic 2 years Te Mana o Te Moana that skipper Eva Nancy Vunikura spoke about. And Dieter also built Hikiana Ralia, the sister canoe for Hokulea. Okeanos is now obviously working with our Pacific leaders to establish this regional network of wakamotus, which are traditionally designed, tried and tested and proven for sustainable sea transportation using only native energy sources, solar, wind, and coconut oil. So, can I now ask Dieter to please come and speak to us?
What an, oh yeah, it's high enough, I make it higher. Excellencies, dear friends of the ocean, what a day today. To have a woman with me, a skipper, who sailed with me 7 years, and is the only woman in the world who have sailed 60,000 miles, 3 times around the world on these waka, which is nobody else. Is that gorgeous? And you must know this waka, as you have seen, is like a platform. You sit on a chair, keep your hand on a chair, and then think about this where you sit, and then 1 meter around is down is the ocean. You have no protection. You're just sitting on the plank, and the ocean is around you, and 6-meter waves coming behind you. And she would love to be in a waka now with force 12. You know, better than to be here, because you would be better here and afraid on the boat, but these otherwise. So that you see how courageous these people are when we started. And it's really a very important day today, because exactly 10 years ago, I stood on the beach in Tonga and saw a wreck, the Te Ao Tonga, that was one boat built in 1985 as the Wakamotu. And because they sailed and then came a storm and it was a wreck. But I saw it, and because I knew Hukolea, I said, this can be metaphorical. That is not a boat, it is not a transportation, it's metaphorical, because we had seen what Hokulea, one boat, did in Hawaii. It sparked, it ignited such a power, it empowered people to do things, to embrace the tradition, to be pride on it. And we thought that might happen also in the South Pacific. So we started to repair it with people there, sailed it to the Pacific Art Festival in 2008. And there had been all nations. And in one night we decided 60 nations together on the fire, we have to build 7. And we have to man the most one with always one crew from one island. So Fiji had one boat, Tahiti, Cook Island, New Zealand, Samoa, and New Zealand, and 2 wakas with people from 10 nations, so to embrace the entire ocean. And that's the Te Mana Te Mana, spirit of the ocean voyage we started, to really revival of this old tradition to sail. The Polynesians had been the best sailors ever, because they sailed 1,000 years before celestial navigation, which is a miracle in mathematics. You see, it's a miracle. And these wakas we built are original to plans of 200 years, drawings from James Cook when he came to Tahiti. We built the superstructure. And why? Because these crab sails, you have seen the sails open, are so strong. Because the hoy, the rudder, which you have seen is very unusual, is more safe than the modern rudders, which are very often delicate and very often destroyed, and the boats come into problems. And the lashings between the hulls, the kiatos, the beams are not fixed as we would build our boats. They have these lashings. And when I sailed the first time, I was as anxious, oh God, these lashings, will it keep it? But then in the first storm I learned they are so strong because the hulls can move, while we are normally used to fix everything. So these lashings are so strong that we sailed now, and you can't believe it, with these boats, 7, we sailed 240,000 miles, 3 times over the Pacific. This means 10 times around the world, without any accident, sailing in all waters. And when we come back, and this is the opportunity now, what we heard today from Excellency Prime Minister Remengesau, President Remengesau, that today he announced, which is really unique, that now out of the depths of the Pacific, several states apply for a GCF fund to build a traditional Pan-Pacific network. That means that all islands get several boats for different needs. That means within 10 years from the first wreck to something nobody believed it would come back, that we now apply and have the vision that maybe in 10 years we will have 100 of these boats in the Pacific, only within 10 years. That should give us hope how fast we can change. And it's not only that we have 100 boats. Each boat in each island, in each state, empowers so much to see the boat, the tradition coming back, releases in so many people so much power and hope and home feeling that this, we cannot imagine what that means for the societal change which we need for climate change. We saw that the Marshall Islands now, when the funeral for the distinguished and late Tony de Bruym had to be released to the waters, they immediately decided that the Waka would be the only place to make it in the tradition, in the routeway. And we had been happy to be there. And what we see today when we speak about climate change, climate action, that is not enough. We all talk here, that should be a way to development, to have a better life. And I feel that WACAs, and that we did in the last years, to concentrate to say, it is not enough to save CO2, it must also improve the life of the people and give alternatives. In transportation is, of course, the blood veins in the ocean, but transportation with this boat is not all. Transportation is connection of the people. It's a matter of the people to bring the people together. And to give you another idea maybe behind this, if you change this word sustainable transportation to connection, we know immediately everybody speaks today of connection, because connection we mean the digital connection, and everybody is connected to the world. But this connection is very doubtful, and it might lead us to radical isolation and not to bring us together. And the contrast to this are these boats, because we need physical, real connection. We need real things we can touch and feel to come together to us. And we feel this is an answer to the digital connection. It's a real connection. It will be very important for a healthy society one day, especially in the Pacific. So the meaning of these boats is far above the pure transportation. And that might be the reason that these islands now said, let's apply for GCF fund. To give you some background information for this, the boats we heard run by wind, by batteries, and by coconut oil. It could give the idea the engines, everything is so bad, we need always something in spare. We learned that sometimes we have no sun. So even we have no wind, we can sail with a solar power with 5 knots. But sometimes we have no wind and rain and dark and for days. And we need security in sailing, and that we can really reach the points which we supplied for children, cargo, passengers, whatever. So we invented a combination of an electric engine on the same shaft with a small Volvo engine, and we feed this engine with coconut oil. Now, everybody says in the technical world, especially in the fuel world, that doesn't work. In Germany, our farmers do this in 30 years, therefore I have so much experience in this. And we now do it in the Pacific with 2 years, and it will open these possibility for all the islands to run their generators with coconut oil. Please think back for 100 years ago, the first cars on diesel, they run all on ethanol, all on oil from peanuts and things like this. So the idea is, there is a United Nations report saying that there's 1 million ton coconut oil not produced, possible for this use. It's not for food, it's low grade. 1 million tons equal $1.5 billion per year, which could stay in the island and the money would not go out to Saudi Arabia. Imagine what that would mean for the well-being of these people, for the richness. This is not necessary to get any grants anymore. And therefore, for the product we build now with these wakamoto, you have heard enough, I don't want to talk more about it. We made a business model which have with a corporate limited company, which helps the islands to prove that these boats can work and make a living, and that everybody, community, can invest it. And we take the risk in the first 5 years to build it up for the needs of each island, and then they can do it on their self. That is a need. So not gifting on the long run, empowering, giving back pride that they stay on their own. And therefore the GCF money is needed. And it's not the question, yes or no, and possible, it must be yes. The only question can be how. And this question should be answered by all of us, the people of the ocean. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dieter, for that. And as I said, for these kinds of very innovative projects, we need people like yourself who can bring their experience, their passion, their vision to make something like this happen. And I think when we listen to the collective wisdom and the collective insight of our panelists, it's very clear that the benefits are obvious. These wakamotos are not prototypes. They are proven, they're tested, and so we know what the benefits are in terms of inter-island transportation, They could be first responders to disasters, as has been proven in the case of Vanuatu. They're useful platforms for collecting data, information, scientific research can be undertaken through these very useful vessels. They could be floating classrooms for educational and awareness purposes. So the benefits are obvious to us. And so that leads me to, we still have a few minutes before we finish. That leads me to a last question that I want to put to our panelists, and that is, we obviously need to convince the Green Climate Fund for this project, and I think that that's something that we can work on. But what do you envisage in terms of some of the challenges that you think we will face within our own countries in terms of trying to make this happen? As leaders, you're convinced, but obviously we need to have our people with us. And so what do you see as some of the challenges that you anticipate and envisage in order for us to make this happen? And so I'm looking at the panelists. Can I have any volunteers? Vice President George, thank you.
Thank you. I believe the support, the financial resources to support the operation is a challenge, at least for the Federal State of Micronesia. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice President George. I think that is certainly a challenge that we will try and overcome. Hopefully the GCF will approve this proposal, and that will go some way in addressing this issue. Any more comments, perspectives from our panelists? President Heine, I'm looking at you. Would you like to offer further comments on this?
Thank you. That's a very important question, and one that we're thinking about as we go forward in working with Okeanos on this project. I guess I'm going back to resources also, because I think as long as we have grants, we can build this wakamotu. And speaking of the Marshall Islands, we have 24 island communities. I think it would be good to have 1 or 2 wakas for each of these communities, so that they can serve the inter-island or within the lagoon transport needs of the people. And so in thinking about that, we would need to have 20-some wakamotus in order to make sure that there are that type of vessels for communities to serve them as we move away from speedboats and boats that are being used that are using gasoline. So I guess as we continue to build more of the model, maybe the cost will go down. And so the viability of having these island communities affording wakamotu would be probably more possible. That's my I guess that would be my concern, the possibility of island communities being able to buy. Of course, we're talking about a model where this could be built in a community. For example, in the Marshall Islands, we could have a boat building facility that provide employment for our youth, that provides training for our youth. So the potentials are there, and possibilities are there. So my only concern, I guess, would be the cost of making this possible for island communities, because that's where this would really serve the needs of the people, is within each community in the other islands of the Marshall Islands. That's how I kind of see it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Heine. And in fact, this project intends to do exactly that. It will look at establishing boat yards. It will look at establishing training centers, which will then provide, obviously, benefits to the community in terms of training, jobs, and so forth. And this is one of the benefits of this project proposal. So thanks for reinforcing those points. Final comments from any of the panelists before we finish? We're running out of time. Yes, Dr. Matsuda?
So I just heard that the the project for the Okamoto, and then it's really impressive for me. And then I'm coming here to introduce the Japanese initiative, which is the JCM Joint Crediting Mechanism. But at the same time, Japan is one of the donor countries who support the GCF. And then our government has been actually supporting the promoting the development of the GCF project. And then there's a now, and we'll just start one of the new projects with our Ministry of the Environment in Japan to build the capacity to have the good funding proposal. So maybe you can also, which covers all of the countries, developing countries, and especially the seed country is one of the higher priority regarding to the GCF project. So maybe it would be better to consider to collaborate with the Japanese government as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Matsuda, for that offer of funding assistance from Japan that will help our countries in building boats like this. But final comments from Dieter, please.
No, it works. Yeah, what you point out, Dr. Matsuda, the solar panels we used, the producer said they will stay only 6 months at sea. No guarantee, but they are staying now 8 years with us, and they work perfectly. The same with the batteries. They say 7 years again, they are all in perfect order. And the Wakamoto. So we should also be a little bit critical. But our apply, what I want to say, what we ask the countries, what Marshall Islands did, they should make free tax import, no duties, no tax for alternative sustainable transportation means boats and equipment. Secondly, they should find on the long run new ways for giving skippers a ticket. In the moment we have only tickets we have to make in New Zealand, it needs a lot of mathematics, and it's very difficult for fishermen and women and young men, young women and young men to cope with this. It is made for tankers for 10,000 tons, but we don't need this. So we need new regulations, and what we need most is training centers. This is lost. And we trained 80 people, 120 sailors in the beginning to make this voyage, and now we trained maybe 500, and there are sparks in the islands and waiting for boats, but we need thousands. And so we need training centers and very good chances for young people to have a decent profession as a sailor and as a boat builder. This is a key, the bottleneck in the moment we have to work on. We know the technique. These boats, I want to point out, that these boats nobody designed. With this Wakamoto, we made 3 years a test run, and Eva was this 3 years with another 20,000 miles going all around the islands, till Marshall Islands, Palau, back Vanuatu, back to Tahiti, and we worked everywhere. So all the experience and all the sailors and people on board came into these wakas. We changed these several times. So this boat is a design of the experience of the entire Pacific. We never had this before. It's a really sharing community, and this is the future. I had forgotten to point this out. There's nobody designed. That is the people of the Pacific, and therefore it runs so nicely, and it's the experience, and everybody welcomes us so much. Thank you to all our people that help them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dieter. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our side event. I'd like to acknowledge all of our partners, and I'd like to especially acknowledge our speakers, our highly esteemed panelists this afternoon. I'd like to acknowledge once again President Heine, President Remengesau, Vice President George, Dame Meg Taylor, Dr. Matsuda, Dieter, and Eva for participating in our panel this afternoon. I hope that you found it interesting and insightful in terms of their perspectives, and we look forward obviously to the support of all of the Pacific Islands in making sure that this project becomes a success. So with those final words, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, and once again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you.